Namaste everyone, this is Sangeeta Laura Biagi and this is the Gitananda Nada Yoga Sangha, and we are delighted today to have one more episode of our Songs of the Heart series, heart-to-heart conversations with members and mentors of our Nada Yoga Satsanga. So we're very delighted today to have with us our dearest Yogacharya Michael McCann. Hello Michael G. Namaste.
Namaste everyone.
Namaste, everyone. So, before we begin, or as a beginning, we are going to invoke the Guru Gayatri. So I'm going to mute you because otherwise with the Zoom is going to become a bit cacophonic. So if you know this Gayatri, you can invoke it with us. If you don't know the Gayatri, you can listen to the sounds and allow your teachers and people that have helped you become the person you are today, allow their presence bloom at the center of your heart. Om Tat Param Paryaya Vidmahi Jnana Lingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayate Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Gitananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Puduvai Kalai Mamani Puduvai Shakti Yogacharini Ammaji Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani Guru Mata Ki Jai. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Well, lovely. So I'm going to highlight here our lovely, more than a guest really, Michael G, because you, as we'll see now from the bio data of Yogacharya Michael McCann, and also the conversation, is that with Michael we have a member of the Parampara who has been very active in many ways. So it is truly an honor and a pleasure to be able to host this with you, Michael G. Michael and I have been going back and forth for some time now to decide what would be the best way to present and share the wisdom that is flowing through Michael, because there's much there. So we were thinking, okay, how should we do it? How can we do it? The Sangha is about 45 minutes to an hour long. You will also have an opportunity to ask Michael some questions. So if you don't have pen and paper near you, and if you don't have very strong memory, I suggest that you go and get your journal and a pen so that you can jot down any ideas or any thoughts you want to ask later. So I am going to read your bio, Michael, because it is inspiring and also this is our starting point. So, Yogacharya Michael McCann grew up in Belfast and was raised a Roman Catholic. From an early age, he was drawn by contemplation on the nature of being. His life in yoga started when he was 17 years old, and it is still unfolding. His insight into parallel themes in yoga and Christianity comes from his personal journey of marrying his Catholic and yogic sides. He describes himself as a Catholic Hindu and a Hindu Catholic. He studied literature at the university, postgraduate in Anglo-Irish literature, worked in policy and legislation in the Department of Agriculture and Forest Services, and worked for the Northern Ireland Ombudsman. And then you mentioned this, you're thinking about this name as in Om, Buddhi and Manas. Then you can tell us a little bit about what that means for you. Michael joined our Rishi Culture Ashtanga Yoga Parampara during COVID-19 after listening to the amazing online daily satsangs of Dr. Nandaji. He knew instantly that Dr. Nandaji was coming from an authentic ancient living source, And, after some months, Yogacharya Michael started to study the yoga step by step, which he completed, and then became involved with the parampara in many, many ways, such as, for example, being an editor of Yoga Life, our ashram international journal. 2 years ago, he was honored by Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani as Yogacharya. So, Michael, let's take a journey into your life story. And from your life story, we will look at some aspects of this theme, Light from the East, Common Threads between Christianity and Yoga. Each step of your life reveals how the teachings of yoga and Christianity intertwine and weave together, maintaining their cultural specificity. So we will also talk about cultural appreciation and respect, of course, and yet creating a tapestry of unity and harmony. So we'll begin as a young boy. You as a young boy were, in quote, an altar boy. You were an altar boy in the church. So you can tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how starting to go to this church near you impacted you, especially your love for the liturgical language and the ritual of Christianity, especially the novenas dedicated to Mother Mary. I would also like to invite you to then tell us how this experience as an altar boy prepared you for the chanting and the rituals that you later found in the ashram setting of praises dedicated to the Devi. Thank you, Michael G.
Thank you, Sangita. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yes, it's been a journey and continues to be a journey. And, also I should say too, for me, Catholic Hindu and Hindu Catholic, Catholic means in its truest sense universal. And so it should take in everything. And Hindu for me is Sanatana Dharma, the perennial wisdom that shines through all of the paths. And so when I started as an altar boy, I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I lived next door to the church. And at that time, this was pre-Vatican II, when it was still very much the old Latin Mass that had been handed down for a couple of thousand years. And so it was very much, bells and smells, as they say. Some of the elements that actually went away were removed with the advent of Vatican II. But there was aspects of it, even though I was a normal young lad growing up with normal interests and so on. I was very much drawn to the whole ritual of the Latin Mass at the time, particularly the liturgical language of Latin and the beautiful resonances of it. When I came to Sanskrit and so on, when I went on the proper yoga journey, it seemed as if it was just so natural. There was something missing when the Latin went for me from the Mass and the experience. If you think, one of the key prayers to Mother Mary is the Hail Mary or the Ave Maria. Now, the line Hail Mary, full of grace, chanted it as Ave Maria, gratia plena. You have that beautiful rhythmical sort of primordial language that you have with Sanskrit. And when language can be outworn, and I think it's very important that spiritual matters are supported by special language. You have it, the Arabic of the Quran, and the Latin of, as I say, of the Old Mass, Sanskrit, of course, and so on. Anyway, part and parcel of my serving as an altar boy was that I lived next door to the church, and in bad weather, or even as the troubles developed and so on in Northern Ireland, many of the altar boys couldn't come down to serve. They lived a distance away. And so the priest would be always knocking my door. And so I would find myself sometimes taken out of school or doing 2 or 3 masses in the morning. And even and also serving at devotions, particularly devotions to Mother Mary. And you had all the flowers, especially in May, the novena, which is very, very like the Navaratri. And, the 9 days of novena prayers to the Virgin Mary. So you had the flowers and the incense and the prayers and so on. So that had a deep abiding effect on me. And I think it installed in me too a special sort of love of the Virgin Mary, as mother. And it's a particularly Irish thing, I should say. It's a feature of Irish Christianity, the veneration of Mary. So anyway, when I went eventually to Mandala Yoga Ashram, one of the daily chants was the chants to the Devi. Devi, Namastasye, 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 Namo, Namaha, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, and so on. Daya Rupena Samstida, beautiful, beautiful lines to the Devi. And I realized then, yes, I just felt so at home. This is the same as what was happening, in those days when I was an altar boy. So yes, it was a real preparation. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yes, the beautiful, already you highlighted quite a few threads, one of them being the one of the novena and the, this fantastic festival and cultural celebration of Navaratri. And the power of the numbers there is also quite meaningful. This three repeated 3 times, and 3 being such an important number in so many cultural traditions. So, but before you went to the ashram, you just had an epiphany when you were 17, which I would like to share with the Sangha, which was the first time that you were exposed to the mandala of the Shri Yantra. That didn't happen in a temple, though. Where did it happen? Can you tell us?
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting story. And if I can just have a little preliminary digression, you mentioned the yantra and the 9, well, and so on. Sankita, well, the rosary, of course, which is is mantra japa, and full of Ave Marias, and there are 153 chanted throughout the rosary, and if you add up the names, you get 9. And Ave is Eva reversed. So and you have Eve, who is associated with the fall, and then you have the descent, and you have the ascent with the announcement, with the Ave, where things begin to go up again. So I just thought I would mention that. So yes. There's a saying, in Christianity, the Spirit bloweth where it willeth, which means, when you're ready and when you're right, the Spirit will find you out. It's the Holy Spirit, really, and it's grace, so it will come into the most unlikely places. So, I'm 17 years of age. I suppose a young hippie and so on. This year, talking at the 1970 or so, and I went down to a friend's house, and after school, and I heard this beautiful music coming from upstairs, and I thought, I'll go up and find out who that is. And it was a 60s band called the Moody Blues. I'd never heard of them, and I asked the guys that were sitting around, can I see the cover? And the album, was actually called In Search of the Lost Chord, which of course has meaning, because really when I reflect on it, my whole life has been, in search of the lost chord, or else the lost chord in search of me. And anyway, so I opened up the gatefold sleeve, as it was at the time, and there was a Sri Yantra. And I thought, my goodness. But then as I read down, it said used in meditation, and in yoga, and is the yantra of the mantra Om. And the word yoga just hit me like a thunder flash. I mean, it was really an epiphany. I'd never heard the word before. Went home and looked it up in the dictionary. But I spent the whole night in a state of absolute excited delirium, nearly thinking, "Good God, what is this? What is?" I knew it was something so important. It was just so. It was a. It really was a pivotal moment, and so anyway, after school, I rushed down to the library, got the one book on yoga, took it home, devoured it. It was a book actually on Raja Yoga by Ernest Wood, and it was of course it was over my head, but there were some of the postures actually sketched out in it, and I tried to make shapes and so on. But there was no teacher. There was nobody I could connect with. But I just kept with that interest. And strangely, I was doing my A levels at the time and studying W.B. Yeats, and up came the word prana. And I thought, my goodness, prana, that belongs to yoga, and yoga's only come into vogue in the 60s. This is how naive I was. I didn't realize that W.B. Yeats, our national poet, had been a yogi and had translated, the Upanishads and the Gita and the Yoga Sutras into English 100 years before, So all of these things, they were just amazing. I remember putting my hand up and saying to the Christian brother, I know what this word prana means, and it didn't go down too well, I have to say. So, the conditioning of society at the time too, it was a big distrust of yoga as being something unchristian and so on. I was being trained by the Christian brothers. So, you had a lot of those undercurrents and ripples,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yes, I was reflecting on this, Michael G, that at the time you went to the library, you went to the dictionary, how different it is today, where, first of all, yoga and, there are many, many more people who are aware of the traditional, aspects of this incredible philosophy and way of life and teachings. But at the time, truly, you had to go to the dictionary and to the library, and there was not a lot of access to it. So definitely the spark found you, and we're very happy that it did.
Yeah.
But continuing on with your life experience, let's perhaps share a little bit about Lisa, your Dharma partner.
Mm-hmm.
Shanti
Yes.
Lipa, it's her spiritual name, because in our conversations you mentioned that she is your yoga teacher. She has been your yoga teacher. She continues to be a teacher of yoga. And the fact that you are married and shared life and shared the local culture and the culture of yoga together, I'm sure has had an incredible impact on you. So I wanted to ask you, is meeting Lisa the time when you started to weave the common threads between yoga and Christianity?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, I think it was a catalyst, Sankita, as you say. I had this awakening, but I didn't actually attend a formal yoga class. Swami Satyananda left one of his swamis, Swami Atmananda Saraswati, female swami, and she taught in Belfast for a while. But because of the troubles and the fact that quite often the transport was disrupted and so on, and it was dangerous to travel. That sort of ebbed away for me. And the yoga centre at that time in Belfast, the fledgling centre that Swami Satyananda set up, was right on the crossroads of a flashpoint where there was a lot of conflict. So it was really strange yoga in the centre of this. And Swami Satyananda had come to bring the light of yoga to Ireland at the time. He was on a world tour. So anyhow, Lisa Shanti Rupa, my wife, she had already immersed herself in Satyananda or Bihar yoga, and she was trained by Bihar Swamis. So she had imbibed the teachings, and was on the path. And as often happens, I had been drawn away. Went to university and so on, and hadn't really been attending a class. The yoga was still there, but it receded into the background and was replaced by my career and by studying literature and all of that sort of thing. But then I became ill, and that illness, the shadow yoga, brings many people to yoga, or that gives a call. And I thought, I have to go and sort myself out here and so on. So I by happenstance, I went into a yoga class, right? And Lisa was the teacher there at the time. She was assisting another teacher, Norma Duffield, who was very inspirational. And I was struck by just, Lisa was a teacher of yoga, but I was struck by her poise. She just had that. She was aptly named by Swami Niranjan as Shanti Rupa. She just was the embodiment of peace. And there was something she taught from her center. She had this sort of poise, equipoise, and so she made a big impression with me. We became friends, and then eventually she became we married, and she became my life partner. But certainly she was a catalyst for me discovering the deeper yoga, or the real yoga. She was already, as I say, part and parcel of the Satyananda tradition. But she also had, a knowledge of B. Griffiths and William Johnson and so on. These pioneers who had gone and absorbed the teachings of the East, priests who had married their Christianity with the Eastern teachings, and she introduced me to these great sages, if you like. But most importantly was that she introduced me to Mandala Yoga Ashram, and my next teacher, the preceptor of Mandala Yoga Ashram, Swami Satyananda, or Swami Nishchalananda Saraswati. He was visiting in Ireland after spending 15 years away. He had actually come out of the same group that sat in that satsang with Swami Satyananda, that I joined back in 1970, and so it was like how would I put it, rejoining a current that had been buried, really. So that was the beginning of a new adventure, really.
Thank you so much, and we salute and we say hi to Shanti Rupa from the Sangha as well. And so you mentioned Swami Nishalananda Saraswati, and you have mentioned before that he, thanks to the meeting with him, then subsequently from Swami Niranjanananda, you received a spiritual name of Spandan, so you had mantra diksha. Because this is another yoga sangha, of course, we're very interested in your experience of that, because not, of course, the details of what happened, but more like, what was it like for you to receive the spiritual name of Spandan? What does Spandan mean? And also, how does it relate to the teachings of Nada Yoga and the parampara of Rishi culture, Ashtanga Yoga? Thank you.
That's a big question. And I probably should take you back because I jumped a little bit ahead. After I'd had that awakening when I was at school, and when I encountered the word yoga and so on, I was out for a walk without a teacher. Some 6 months later, and again, as I say, in some way, you think you're the seeker, but you're really being sought. And there was a poster on the wall, and it was advertising Swami as Satyananda. And as I say, I went along to one of his sanghas or satsangs, and it had a great effect on me. And that's at that time, Swami Nishchalananda was living in Belfast, and he went along to the same satsangs, and but travelled back to India with Swami Satyananda and stayed for 15 years with him, and then returned to the UK and set up Mandali Yoga Ashram, which is still a thriving ashram today. So anyway, while I was there on one of my visits, Swami Naranjan, who is the successor of Swami Satyananda, was making a visit to the ashram. He was a great friend of Swami Nishchalananda, and he bestowed him the title of Yogacharya of that tradition on Swami Nishchalananda at that time. And it was a great opportunity to have mantra diksha. And Lisa got her name, her spiritual name Shanti Rupa then, and I was given this spiritual name of Spandan. Now, that it's a name from Kashmir Shavas, and I must say, I thought, gosh, that's not a very really lyrical sounding name. People were having these nice names like Ananda and so on, with an Ananda at the end of it. And I thought, what could that possibly mean, And I came out and Swami Nishchalananda said, what name did he give you? And I said, Spandan. And he said, oh, he got you right on the nail. You see, so I thought, well, can you please explain what it means? And then he explained it. And of course, when you get a spiritual name, a yogic spiritual name, it's something that you aspire to and wish to embody. And Spandan, means the vibration of consciousness, really. It's several meanings, a very, very subtle and metaphysical concept as well. But, in, for example, in the Vedas, they talk about how creation comes about, how everything is in a sense of quietude and everything of potency. And then the Brahman or Shiva says, I have an urge to create, the creative urge, to create the word or to unfold from himself, the universe. And that primordial quiver, which I think is nada too, and from the nada in the tradition of Dr. Ananda's teachings, he's very, very clear about nada bindu kala, and that quiver is that first primordial movement. And it's the first, I am one, but I wish to become many. That sort of, that urge sets about a movement, which is of course the Shakti, which then goes on to create the universe. So it's a ripple of consciousness, I think, and it's the reverberations of the mantra Om and many, many other things. So for me, as regards the Nada teachings of the Rishi culture parampara, it embodies both aspects. The importance of mantra and the importance of meditation. It's both there, and much more, really.
Thank you so much. And are there teachings in Christianity that also relate to this quiver of consciousness, as you put it?
Yes, that's an interesting one. The nearest thing I could think of would be, of course, the mysterious words of St. John's Gospel. Now, the three other Gospels are aimed at different sectors: the Greeks, the Gentiles, the Jews. But the cosmic gospel, which is the gospel of the cosmic Christ, the risen Christ, which is universal, it begins with the mysterious words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and nothing came into being except with that Word. Okay, so the Word said, it was like, let there be light, and then there was light. So that ripple the word that comes then creates a light. And what is that light? But it's the light of consciousness, of course. You know, Jesus is associated in that gospel, which is the mystical gospel, with the light of consciousness, the prakash, or the light that you come upon in the Gayatri mantra. You meditate upon the light Savitri. You know, Tat Savitur Vareniyam. Who is that mysterious being, the sun behind the sun, who sheds a light? That could be Shiva, and it could be Jesus. It could be the Buddha. You know, it could be the Mohammedan Baraka. It could be, you know, it's all of that for me. You see the so it's there. So that's very much the vibration. You know, let there be light. And I think, you know, and then you see, for the let there to be light, you know, you have the Trinity as you have in Christianity, and you don't hear too much about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is Ananda. You see, Sat is the Father, Chit is the light of consciousness, Jesus, and Nanda is the Spirit, the Holy Spirit then that gets moving and is the creative energy, the Shakti, you see, and associated too with Mary, you know, often depicted as a female. Unfortunately, in this sort of nearly the patriarchal setting of Christianity, you have the Trinity are all male, but in many depictions and associations, you know, it is Ananda, it's female.
This relationship of the Trinity with Sat Chit Anandam is a very interesting Sangha that can stay on its own altogether. But we will continue on now, because I want to ask you then, as we're talking about this very resonant words, actually they're not even words, they're sounds that then we classify as words. You mentioned to me that Gaelic language has roots in Sanskrit. So you sent me a list, which we will share with our Sangha later. Would you like to tell us a little bit? For example, the word for spirit, Atman in English, in Irish, Gaelic is Anam, correct?
Yes.
I don't want to misspell them. So why don't you tell us and I let you pronounce them properly? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, yes, so Anam is the Gaelic word for Atman. You know, the Gaelic language is of course an Indo-European language, but there are many words that are very similar in Gaelic. I studied Gaelic at school, but I'm no longer a fluent speaker, although there's a resurgence of Irish in Ireland. So we have similar words, like the Druids, for example, had their language was called Om. You know, the language of the Irish Druids, Om, Ogham. And as well as that, we have a town in here in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, called Omagh, Ma. You see, and as well, you know, the seat of the High Kings of Ireland in the centre of the country was called Tara. You see, and you have, you know, there's another word. And a word that's entered the English language is Banshee. Now the word in Gaelic for a woman is Ban, and the she is spelled Sidhe. So it's a woman of psychic or fairy powers. And as you know, so you have the word city there as well. You know, Ban City, Banshee, another word is, yes, Anam Cara is a beautiful word, which means your soul friend, you know, your Anam Cara, your dear friend. Cara is another word for heart, you know, Cree or Cara. And that could also be your teacher, your preceptor, your guru, you know, your Anam Cara. So there are a lot of parallels. And in W.B. Yeats actually said, you know, before the Battle of the Boyne, that was a famous historical battle that split Ireland and sort of ended up the Gaelic sort of order. Before the Battle of the Boyne, all Ireland belonged to Asia. So when he was involved in translating the ancient texts, the ancient, or should I say, the yogic texts, the sutras and the Upanishads. He wanted to marry the ancient cultures of Ireland and India. That was his aim. And of course, at that time, this was 100 years ago. He was met with a lot of derision. But interestingly, just a few years back, the president of Ireland, who actually is very much a yoga practitioner, invited me to a celebration of the marriage of the two cultures, the cultures of Ireland and India. He was being taught yoga by a friend of mine, and he came out onto the balcony of the Irish presidential palace and said namaste and om and so on. And so 100 years on, it was amazing, because it reminded you how much things had moved on and how much yoga was a part of Irish life. And again, it was just making those connections between those words and between our shared heritage.
Thank you. Something else that was that stood with me in our conversations is how exactly in the culture of origin where you're there now, Christianity also was different than the Christianity that I experienced, for example, in Italy, because of the influence and the impact that the Vatican has had and has here. Now that you have walked the yoga path in this lifetime for many years, in previous lifetimes perhaps even longer, but how would you see, for example, how would you say that Christianity in the area of Ireland where you live has maintained more connections, more threads with yoga than the Christianity of the Vatican, for example? What are a couple of things that have been lost in your experience in this presence of the Vatican, or basically what we're talking about is organized religion, of course, which then has its own, limitations in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And I think in Ireland, Christianity came with St. Patrick, but and then it encountered a Druid religion, which very much was tied up with nature and with the seasons, and there was various gods and goddesses of the Druids, and associations, the big associations between the Druids and the Vedic culture as well. The way they bathed in rivers and they wore their hair up in top knots, and as I say, the language and many of the rites. So there was always sort of a slightly pagan element there. There was a resistance to the Christianization, even though Ireland then became really one of the jewels in the crown of the Catholic of Catholic Europe, and bred many missionaries and so on. But there was always an underlying sense of the mysticism of the land and of nature, you see. And even, we have, on coming up on the 1st of February is La Bride, which is St. Bridget's Day. Now, St. Bridget was adopted, became an associate of female, like almost like a Shakti of St. Patrick, but she was grafted on to a pagan goddess, if you like, who became Christianized, but I think she was the daughter of a Druid, for example. So there is a lot still. So there's a lot of veneration to St. Bridget, and she's seen almost like as a fertility goddess. And the cross that we have, for example, for St. Bridget is almost like a swastika that you see in the cows in India. It has a whirling aspect. So there was an awful mysticism of nature, and even the sense of just underlying behind the shimmering veil, behind the Christian veneer hovers everywhere this sense of the old Ireland. There's a famous poem where a priest is going to church on a Sunday and he passes by a gap in a hedge and he sees the beauty, of the landscape. And the line that follows is, "Ancient Ireland washed in all her unbaptized beauty." You see, so in Ireland there is this diaphanous thing between, especially in Celtic Christianity, uh, you know, between the teachings of the church, but just an inherent, how would I put it, a love of nature and of natural mysticism. You know, there's a mysticism of the land. There's a word "nyart" which means spirit, or it's the nearest thing we have to prana. And we talk about here in our thin places, places where the veil between, as I say, this level of reality and then the underlying reality. It's nearly as if the land has I believe it has its sukshma sharira. It has its subtle level, and thin places are places where people just find themselves drawn to that mysterious sense of oneness or the spirit that permeates nature. So we still have, even there are many feast dates in Ireland that don't even go by the conventional calendar. The first and that go with the old Celtic calendar, and the 1st of February is celebrated St. Bridget's Day, a day of fertility in bulk, and then we have Beltane, 1st of May, and so on. So yes, so some of that was definitely lost, but there is a big return to the mysticism of the land, you know, which is Prakriti too, isn't it? And very much to do with the mother.
Thank you. Yes, beautiful. So we are slowly coming to a completion of our time together for now. And you have such a wonderful repertoire of quotes from great teachers.
Yeah.
From saints to rishis to swamis to gurus to our own Swamiji, Amaji, Dr. Nandaji. You just are able to quote Thoreau, Emerson, Whitman, all of these different ones. So in concluding for now, then we'll have about 10 minutes for our Sangha to ask any questions. Before we go into these concluding aspects of the invocations and so on. If someone is, let's say that someone watching this video is drawn to the theme and hasn't yet embarked on a yoga path, a yoga life, and they are unsure, right, of is it possible, is it appropriate, how should I do it? Based on certain quotes that are your favorite quotes that talk about the common threads of all spiritual traditions, how would you guide them into overcoming fear of division and, through appreciation of cultural differences, find the true oneness that unites us all?
Yes. Yes. You know, and that was very much my journey. But I think go out with faith and explore. And if you're drawn, for example, to yoga, go and enter it and listen to you know, what it has to say, and discover the truths in it. You know, love it. You know, you can't love one. You know, if you love one religion, you must love them all. And the Sufis say, you know, that, you know, water takes on the color of the cup from which it's drunk, but it's all the same water. You know, and the Vedas, of course, say, you know, there are many faces of the one. You know, many faces of the one truth. So I would say, yes, go and discover, have faith, and if you're called, anybody who is in that position is being called anyway by the Spirit, you know. So it's the universal Spirit that is calling them, and be open, and also recognize the differences in all these different faiths. You can't marry them, these great paths, but you can learn from them, you know. I think I love a quote by Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, where he says, It is a wonderful thing to be born into a religion, but it's a sad thing to die in it. And what he meant by that, and I've thought about that quotation, is that the religion is like a protective pot that you're growing into. You know, if you buy a plant, a little tree from a garden center, and it's in its protective pot, that's your birth religion, right? Now, some people want to stay in that pot, and that's their dharma, and that's okay, and they can reach the center there in their pot. But some people have a desire to go out and put their roots deep, break open that pot, and for the roots to go into the soil. You see, in the soil of truth. And so some of us are called to do that, and that is your vocation. And so go and explore and have faith and know that all of these great paths are all just different faces of the one. That would be very much my advice. And again, all the differences are like on the spokes of a wheel or on the circumference, and all with their different journey, their different paths and cultures and so on. But as they all converge in the center. So I would say also meditation is a very important part. Yes, you could go with the rational mind. The rational mind will rationalize as it breaks things into bits. But in the center of your heart is where all of these converge. So I think meditation is in the heart space. That's where the truth comes from, and that's where you'll find it.
Thank you so much, dear Michael. And we are now going to open up to the Sangha if we have one or two questions, or if you'd like to comment on anything that Yogacharya Michael McCann has shared with us. Now would be a good time, so don't be shy. You can unmute yourselves, or if you need assistance, you can just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for hosting this, and it's great to listen to you, Michael. And it's that wisdom, sir, that we've shared over the years since we've met. But it's really touched me how we both started off. I started off as an altar boy myself, and I was on the altar that long they had to ask me to leave. I was normally it's only done in primary school, but they had to get me, and I was touched. And then that bit about being away. I brought up a Catholic myself, and then went away from religion altogether, and then was brought back again. But in between becoming back, I found yoga, and you know yourself how I found yoga from a dark place, and then through being at mass again, I found what a priest had shared, and then become again back into my faith again. But what you mentioned there was meditation, and you taught me way back 22 years ago, and about how I was able to share with the priest, and was able to say, about the track that I was on, what you were saying, the teaching yoga coming from a Catholic faith, and then having to be able to go on radio with a Catholic priest who was strongly against it, and you guided me, how to deal with that, and then being able now to teach all different community, and believe that we're under the one sky, that we're all brothers and sisters under the one sky, and just as you say, respecting everybody's belief. So what you shared was really powerful, and I've heard you over 22 years, but this touched me today, buddy. This touched me big time. So thank you, my friend.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. And And yes, it's very true. That a saying that I often use, and I've heard before, yoga makes a Christian a better Christian, a Hindu a better Hindu, a Buddhist a better Buddhist, and an atheist a better atheist. And in some way, too, that there's a truth there that in some way, if I have discovered so much in yoga and in the teachings of Sanatana Dharma that has thrown light and understanding on my birth religion, if you like. And I mean, Big Griffiths, when he went out to India in search of the missing half of his soul, he said that and this is what I found when I struggled with the books, the scholastic theology and so on, was that it was very much based on Greek philosophy. Big Griffiths says, look at his time now in this interspiritual world, that the Upanishads and the Gita and the teachings of the Sufis of Islam are brought to bear on the message of who Christ was and to shed meaning there. And people today, that has resonates much more with them. So in the end, so in many, many ways, in your end, as T.S. Eliot says, is your beginning. And if I can just continue just to say this, interestingly, the great tantric Sir John Woodruff, who was responsible for such amazing works on Tantra, when he returned to England, he continued to be a tantric, but he entered the Catholic Church. So there's great lessons in all of these great mysteries, really.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Mr. John. And thank you so much, Michael. We have time for one more comment or question. Please don't be shy. Come on, come on. Yes, Bharataji, namaskar.
Thank you so much, Michael, though, for your wonderful sharing. It's very powerful, very powerful. I won't get into details about how I was an altar boy, or also, or how the Moody Blues album "In Search of the Lost Chord" was discovered. I had been studying yoga for a few years by the time I saw that and heard that. But what I wanted to raise the topic of a couple of points contrasting what the popular teaching of Christianity seems to be, and Sanatana Dharma in terms of the yogic path. We've got this precious teaching that the kingdom of heaven is within. We've got teachings from Jesus in the gospel, who said to the disciples, all of these things I do, ye shall do and more, and greater things than these. So wow, this is Jesus encouraging the followers to work towards that fuller potential. There's the teaching also in one of the Gospels. In the book of Matthew, I believe, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be full of light. Again, we've got the Ajna Center, the inner luminosity of the yogic tradition teachings. And then there's even, a pinnacle teaching on this is in the gospel, Jesus is said to have taught, be thee therefore perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect. And then we've got the book of Revelations with John highlighting the imagery of the chakras, the imagery of the soul not needing to reincarnate again, because their veil has become luminous and they don't need to go out anymore. There's the image of liberation and resolution of karma. And meanwhile, the dominant Christian teaching seems to be that the priests and the hierarchy of the church beats us up and suppresses us as you are sinners. You're no good. You don't barely have a chance. If you pray enough, Jesus will forgive you, and that's the path towards realization. So I highlight that because it highlights my my release of some of these the Christianity dogmas and my embrace of Sanatana Dharma and the great yogic teachings. So I just wanted to highlight that and ask Michael, I'm sure you've processed some of those same teachings, and so how would you comment on that, please?
Yeah, thank you. That's a beautiful question, Bharati. Yes, I mean, you know, one of the things that Jesus said too was he rebuked in St. Matthew's Gospel the Pharisees. And you don't hear it ever in a pulpit on a Sunday, but he said, "Woe to ye, Pharisees, you lawgivers! You take away the keys of knowledge from those who wish to enter themselves. You did not enter themselves, and you prevented them." Now, what was he talking about there? For example, he was talking about going within. And there's me. St. John's Gospel is very much, as I say, it's a very mystical gospel where he meets the Samaritan woman at the well. The well is the heart, and he says to her, there'll be a time will come when you won't worship in Jerusalem, where you won't worship in the Church of Jacob, but in the heart space, meditation. And then there's a meeting with Mary and Martha in the house of Lazarus, where Martha's a karma yogi and Mary's sitting listening to him giving satsang, and she says, "Look, I'm doing all this work. Can Mary not come away and give me help?" And Jesus says, "No, you fret too much. Martha has picked a better portion." Now, the portion was the contemplative jnana path, you see, but the way that historically, for various reasons, of Christianity went, it actually didn't highlight that aspect. It highlighted, you see, in Sanatana Dharma, you have the four great margas, because Hinduism is a primordial religion, so it's the root source. So you have jnana and raja and bhakti and karma, but other religions like Christianity concentrated on bhakti and the works, karma, but jnana and raja, they were pushed aside, really, or so somebody, like if you were an aspiring person like me or yourself or many others, you wanted to find the jnana, but there was nowhere to find it. You had to go east to find out and shed lights on the teachings yourself, and that's been a processing for me. And I agree with you. So, going to the heart, the Dharma, and where Christianity became very much moralizing, but that was it. Yes, in the Catholic scenario, you have the sacraments and so on, which are like puja or arti and so on. But there was something missing, and Jesus himself, he, if you think about some in St. John's Gospel too, the woman who comes in and breaks open the alabaster jar, which contains all the perfumes of the Orient, and she washes his feet with her tears. That's pure Shakti. Or when the woman with hemophilia touches his garment, and he says, "Who touched me? The energy went out of me." He was brimming with the Kundalini. There's so many things, you see, that you can learn from the journey into Sanatana Dharma that sheds so much of the genuine light. But as you say quite correctly, it's in the heart space. That's where it is, really, and the teachings are there. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael.
Bharataji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Actually, it made me think about possible future Sangha where we talk about the heart, because Yogacharya Bharataji and both Yogacharya Michael ji have a lot to share with us about the heart. So thank you both. Thank you, Bharataji, for your questions. And we did receive a message from our Guruji saying that they are about to reach home.
I just got back to the ashram.
Oh, okay. Namaste, sir.
Namaste, namaste. I just got back right now. I've just entered the ashram. I have been listening from the first second of the meeting in the car, And it has been such a pleasure, Michael, such a pleasure to listen to you. Truly beautiful wisdom, cross-cultural wisdom. And I was just thinking when you mentioned about our Reverend Bede Griffiths, because thanks to Swamiji, I had visited his ashram near Trichy at least half a dozen times as a kid. And he had tried to bring together the Christianity with the South Indian culture very strongly. Quite a controversial figure in some ways, but Swamiji really liked him. They got on very well, both Veed and Swamiji. And same thing with the Satyananda and Swamiji. So I was just thinking, there are all these different connections that have to come together, and then we all come together the way we come together. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed every moment of listening to you this evening. Thank you, Sangeeta, for putting it together. And again, I would like to acknowledge very, very strongly Michael's beautiful contribution every month to Yoga Life. If it weren't for Michael's contribution over the last 5 years that I've had to edit Yoga Life, I would not be able to do it, along with inputs from our dear Jnana Sundari, who's also here, and Malini, especially in Australia. These three are the pillars. But once we have all the editing done, I send it to Michael and he gives the final touch. And with every time he does that, he gives such beautiful insights into the articles that are there. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. And again, I'm just so blessed to have you in our Sangha, your wisdom, your love, and every member of this Sangha is so dear to me. Love you all so much. And Sangeeta, you talked about Navaratri. This is a Gupt Navaratri going on right now. In certain parts of India, we celebrate another Navaratri. One is in October. But in January, there is a Gupt, which means a hidden Navaratri, which started on Mauni Amavasya, which was on Sunday. And so we are right in those 9 nights of Devi in a different type of Navaratri. So you mentioned Navaratri, and there's a Navaratri going on right now. So just wonderful to be with all of you, and may we all grow and glow in yoga. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Nanda.
Thank you so much, sir, and great congratulations to you for all your achievements and Divya Priya for her gold medal, the first of many.
Yes. Well done, well done.
He made us all so proud. It was such a proud moment today to be there and see her being honored at the university.
That's wonderful. Thank you, sir. Well, wonderful. This could go on for much more time. I feel time actually just totally disappeared, as it rightfully should. So, to conclude, Michael, we had talked about the possibility of you sharing an invocation. Are you still open to this opportunity? So, okay, please. Thank you so much for this gift.
Okay, thank you very much, Sangeeta. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harim Tat Sat.
Thank you so much, Hariom. That's that. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all so much for joining the Sangha. We will create a recording and share it with you so you can have a look at it again. And if you like to get in touch with Yogacharya Michael directly, you can email me and I can give you his email directly. I won't share it publicly, of course, but you're welcome to contact me and I can share it with you. And looking forward to meeting again soon. There are some classes coming up in February. If you'd like to know about those, contact me. And otherwise, we will see you all soon, very much, very, very soon. Also, you can consider joining us in July for our Nada Yoga Residential. So that's an opportunity there. But not to take this energy from you, Michael G. Again, thank you so much. And thank you for blessing us. And everybody who comes in contact with you truly finds a portal to the traditional teachings. And that's a huge service for humanity. So thank you so much. And big hugs, Italian hugs to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sangeeta.
There's one more thing, actually, Michael. Sorry. There's one more thing I wanted to say. What are the colors of the flag of Ireland, Michael?
Green, white, and gold.
Ah,
That's it. Or orange. Green, white, and orange, or green, white, and gold.
okay.
Yeah.
So here they are. These are also the colors of the flag of India.
Yeah, and India
And
too. Yeah.
these are also the colors of the neighborhood of my hometown here. I'll tell you more about this later. But so, yay. Bye-bye, everyone. See
Okay,
you.
thanks a
Thank you all
million.
so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Ciao. Bye. Arrivederci a tutti.
Namaste. Ciao.
Ciao Isa. Bye bye
Ciao.
everyone. Ciao. Grazie mille. Ciao.